The scrapyard on Kepler Station stretched for kilometers in every direction, a graveyard of broken dreams and failed engineering. Among the twisted metal and shattered hulls of 1,000 different species' attempts at greatness lay the most mocked piece of machinery in known space, the Titan-class mining vessel Prometheus. Marcus Chun wiped grease from his hands with an old rag as he stared up at the massive ship. Even half buried under decades of accumulated debris, the Prometheus was an impressive sight. Nearly 2 kilometers long and built like a fortress, it had been humanity's first attempt at deep space industrial mining. It had also been their most spectacular failure. Still looking at that piece of junk? Zixtar clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter among the Valkyrie. The insectoid alien's compound eyes glittered with amusement as he approached Marcus through the maze of scrap metal. You humans and your attachment to broken things. It's almost touching if it wasn't so pathetic. Marcus didn't respond immediately. He'd been working as a freelance mechanic on Kepler Station for 3 years now, ever since the mining company he'd worked for went bankrupt. In that time, he'd learned that arguing with aliens about human engineering was like trying to explain color to someone who'd been blind since birth. They just didn't get it. The Galactic Mining Consortium's looking for salvage crews again. Zixtar continued, his translator box rendering his chittering into perfect standard galactic. Real ships this time. Not that human monstrosity. I could put in a word for you, if you're interested. Assuming you can work on proper technology instead of whatever it is you humans call engineering. Marcus finally turned to face the Valkyrie. Zixtar stood nearly 3 meters tall on his 6 legs, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming in the artificial light of the station. Like most aliens Marcus had met, Zixtar had that particular combination of condescension and pity that seemed reserved specifically for humans. Thanks for the offer, Marcus said, his voice carefully neutral. But I'm good here, suiting yourself to failure, as usual. Zixtar's mandibles clicked again, though I suppose it's fitting. Humans working on human junk. At least you're consistent in your mediocrity. After the Valkyrie left, Marcus climbed over a pile of twisted hull, plating to get a better look at the Prometheus. The ship had been abandoned here 15 years ago, after what the galactic media had dubbed the Great Human Engineering Disaster. Marcus had been just a kid then, but he remembered the news feeds. The Prometheus had been designed to mine asteroids in the outer rim, where the dangerous radiation and gravitational anomalies made it too risky for most species to operate. The ship had lasted exactly 4 months before suffering what the official report called catastrophic systems failure. The crew had barely escaped with their lives, and the Prometheus had been towed to Kepler Station as a total loss. Since then, it had become a joke throughout the galaxy. Whenever someone wanted to insult human engineering, they'd reference the Prometheus. Marcus pulled out his portable scanner and ran it along the ship's hull. The readings made him frown. The metal showed stress fractures, sure, but they were in all the wrong places. If the ship had failed due to poor design, as the official reports claimed, the stress patterns should be different. These fractures looked almost like battle damage. Curious about our local celebrity, Marcus turned to find an elderly human woman approaching. She was small and wrinkled, with silver hair tied back in a practical bun. Her clothes were simple work gear, but Marcus noticed the quality of her tools. This was someone who knew her trade. Dr. Elena Vasquez, she said, extending a weathered hand. I used to be chief engineer on the Prometheus. Marcus nearly dropped his scanner. You're Elena Vasquez? I've read all your papers on quantum drive harmonics. Your work on gravitational field manipulation is brilliant. Elena Smilid Sadli was brilliant. After the Prometheus, nobody in the galaxy will hire a human engineer for anything more complex than fixing coffee makers. Apparently, we're too primitive to understand real technology. What really happened out there? Marcus asked. The official reports don't make sense. These stress fractures, they're not consistent with systems failure. Elena studied him for a long moment. Walk with me, she said finally. They climbed into the ship through a gap in the hull plating. The interior was a maze of corridors and machinery, all of it covered in dust and corrosion. Emergency lighting strips provided a dim glow as they made their way toward the engineering section. The Prometheus wasn't just a mining ship, Elena said as they walked. It was a test bed. Humanity was trying to prove we belonged in the galactic community. We packed every piece of advanced technology we could get our hands on into this ship. Quantum drives, gravitational manipulators, matter converters, artificial gravity systems that could create fields strong enough to hold a small moon. They reached the main engineering bay, and Marcus whistled softly. Even damaged and covered in 15 years of dust, the machinery was impressive. The quantum drive core alone was larger than most ships' entire engine sections. The problem, Elena continued, wasn't with our engineering. It was with the technology we were trying to use. See, when the galactic species share technology with newer species, they don't exactly give you the complete picture. They give you enough to make it work, but not enough to truly understand it. She led him to a massive control console covered in alien script. This is a Zephyrian quantum matrix controller, supposed to be foolproof. Just plug it in, follow the instructions, and it regulates your quantum drive perfectly. Except the Zephyrians never mentioned that their technology is designed specifically for their neural patterns. Marcus ran his hand along the console. Neural patterns? Every species in the galaxy has different brain structures, different ways of processing information. The advanced races design their technology to work with their specific neural patterns. When other species use it, they're essentially trying to run software designed for one operating system on completely different hardware. But it worked for 4 months, Marcus pointed out. It worked until we hit our first major gravitational anomaly in the outer rim. The quantum matrix tried to compensate using Zephyrian neural patterns, but it was being operated by human brains. The feedback loop caused a cascade failure that nearly tore the ship apart. Elena walked over to another section of the engineering bay, where Marcus could see the twisted remains of what had once been a sophisticated computer core. We tried to fix it using human engineering principles, but by then, the damage was too extensive. The ship's systems were fighting each other, alien technology trying to interface with incompatible components. So the Prometheus didn't fail because human engineering was inferior, Marcus said slowly. It failed because you're trying to use alien technology that wasn't designed for humans. Exactly. But try explaining that to the Galactic Council. As far as they're concerned, we're just another primitive species that couldn't handle advanced technology. It's easier than admitting their precious tech-sharing program has fundamental flaws. Marcus spent the next several hours exploring the ship with Elena. The more he saw, the more convinced he became that the Prometheus hadn't been a failure of human engineering, but a victim of technological incompatibility. The human-built components had actually held up remarkably well under the circumstances. You know, he said as they made their way back to the hull breach. I think this ship could be repaired. Elena stopped walking. Marcus, I appreciate the optimism, but the damage is too extensive. Even if we could fix the quantum matrix, we'd need compatible technology to replace the alien components that failed. What if we didn't replace them with alien technology? What if we built our own? Our own quantum drives? Gravitational manipulators? Marcus, that's decades of research and development. Possibly centuries. Marcus pulled out his portable computer and called up some schematics he'd been working on in his spare time. Not if we approach it differently. Look, every alien species we've met has developed technology based on their own neural patterns and physical characteristics. The Zephyrians are energy beings who barely interact with matter directly. Of course, their technology doesn't work well for us. He highlighted several sections of his designs. But what if we designed technology specifically for humans? Technology that works with our neural patterns, our way of thinking, our physical capabilities? Elena studied the schematics with growing interest. This is actually not bad. You found ways to achieve similar results using completely different principles. But, Marcus, even if this worked in theory, building it would take resources we don't have. Maybe. Or maybe we use what's already here. Marcus gestured to the ship around them. The Prometheus has the most advanced fabrication facility ever built by humans. It was designed to process raw materials from asteroids and turn them into anything the ship needed. If we can get it running, we could manufacture our own components, Elena finished. Human technology designed by humans for humans. They spent the next hour going over Marcus's designs in detail. His approach was radically different from standard galactic technology, where alien tech relied on exotic energy manipulation and quantum effects that required specific neural patterns to control. Marcus's designs used brute force engineering and mechanical systems that any human could understand and operate. It's not elegant, Elena admitted as she studied his plans for a replacement quantum drive. But it's robust, and it's completely independent of alien neural pattern requirements. Elegant is overrated, Marcus said. I've spent 3 years fixing alien machinery that breaks down because someone looked at it wrong. Give me something built like a tank that I can repair with a wrench and some spare parts. Elena was quiet for a long moment, staring up at the damaged quantum drive core. You know, if we actually pulled this off, it would change everything. Not just for the Prometheus, but for all of humanity. How do you mean? Right now, humanity is dependent on other species for all our advanced technology. We're clients, not partners. But if we could prove that human engineering approaches could work just as well as alien technology, we'd be equals instead of junior partners, Marcus said. Exactly. No more condescending aliens telling us we're too primitive to understand real technology. No more having to beg for scraps of outdated tech that doesn't even work properly for us. Marcus looked around the engineering bay, imagining it restored and running on purely human technology. So what do you say, Dr. Vasquez? Want to help me rebuild the most mocked machine in the galaxy? Elena grinned, and for a moment she looked decades younger. You know what? Why the hell not? I'm retired anyway, and it would be deeply satisfying to prove every condescending alien in the galaxy wrong. They shook hands in the dim light of the engineering bay, surrounded by the broken dreams of humanity's first attempt at galactic engineering. Neither of them knew it yet, but they were about to embark on a project that would fundamentally change humanity's place in the galaxy. As they prepared to leave the ship, Elena paused at the hull breach. There's one thing you should know, she said. The Prometheus didn't just fail randomly in the outer rim. We were attacked. Marcus stared at her. Attacked? By who? That's the trillion-credit question. Whoever it was used technology I'd never seen before. They disabled our quantum drives without damaging them, forced us into a controlled crash on an asteroid. If our distress beacon hadn't been picked up by a passing freighter, the crew would have died out there. Why didn't you report this? We tried, but without proof, and with the ship's systems in chaos from the Cascade failure, the Galactic Council decided we were just covering up our own incompetence. Another example of humans being too primitive to handle advanced technology. Elena's eyes hardened. Whoever attacked us, they wanted the Prometheus to fail publicly. They wanted humanity to look incompetent. The question is why. As they climbed out of the ship and back into the scrapyard, Marcus found himself looking at the Prometheus with new eyes. The ship wasn't just a symbol of human failure. It was evidence of a cover-up, possibly an act of sabotage designed to keep humanity in its place. Well, Marcus thought as he watched Elena disappear into the maze of scrap metal. If someone wanted to keep humanity down, they were about to be very disappointed. The Prometheus was going to fly again, and when it did, it would prove that human engineering was every bit as good as anything else in the galaxy. Maybe better. Word spread quickly through Kepler Station's Undercity that the crazy human mechanic had bought the Prometheus. Marcus had used every credit he'd saved over 3 years, plus a loan that would keep him in debt for the next decade. But the ship was his, along with all the mockery that came with it. Chin's finally lost it. He overheard a Quran trader saying in Dimitri's cantina, "Bought that human death trap. Give him 6 months before he's selling spare parts just to eat." The Quran's companion, a tall Etherian with pale blue skin, nodded sadly. Humans never know when to quit. It's almost admirable if it wasn't so pathetic. Marcus ignored them and focused on his drink. Real coffee was expensive on Kepler Station, but after spending 12 hours crawling through the Prometheus's damaged systems, he needed the caffeine. Elena sat across from him, sketching modifications on a datapad. Initial assessment is worse than I thought, she said without looking up. The quantum drive is completely shot. The gravitational manipulators are fused to the hull. The matter converter is so damaged, I can't even tell what half the components used to be. Good thing we're not trying to repair them, Marcus replied. How's the fabrication facility? That's the one piece of good news. The fabrication bay is mostly intact. Whoever built this ship knew what they were doing. It's completely modular, designed to be expanded or reconfigured as needed. If we can get power to it, we can start manufacturing components. Marcus nodded. The Prometheus's fabrication facility had been humanity's first attempt at truly advanced manufacturing. It could take raw materials and construct anything from simple tools to complex electronics, given the right programming and materials. It was also built using entirely human technology, which meant they could actually understand and repair it. What about crew? Elena asked. Even if we get this thing working, we'll need people to run it. Already working on that. Marcus pulled out his communicator and showed her a list of names. There are a lot of unemployed human engineers and technicians on Kepler Station. Most of them lost their jobs when the big corporations decided human workers were unreliable compared to alien alternatives. Elena studied the list. These are good people. I know half of them. But, Marcus, even if they're willing to work for free, we're talking about a massive undertaking. Completely rebuilding a 2-kilometer starship using untested technology. I know, but think about what we could accomplish. Every human in the galaxy would benefit if we could prove our technology works just as well as alien tech. Better, even, because it's designed for us. Elena was quiet for a moment, then smiled. You know what convinced me this might actually work? It's not your enthusiasm or your engineering skills, though both are impressive. It's the fact that you're approaching this completely differently than any human project I've seen. How so? Most human engineering projects try to copy alien technology and make it work for us. You're starting from scratch, building something uniquely human. That's either brilliant or completely insane. Maybe both, Marcus admitted. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the cantina's entrance. A group of Valkyrie miners had entered, their translator boxes crackling with laughter and conversation. Marcus recognized Zixtar among them, the alien's compound eyes scanning the room until they settled on Marcus's table. Well, Zixtar clicked as he approached. If it isn't the human who bought the galaxy's most expensive pile of scrap metal. Tell me, Chun, what exactly do you plan to do with that wreck? Turn it into the galaxy's largest paperweight. The other Valkyrie chittered with amusement, but Marcus just smiled politely. Actually, we're going to repair it. The laughter stopped. Zixtar's mandibles clicked uncertainly. Repair it? Chun, that ship couldn't be repaired when it was first built. It's a monument to human incompetence. We'll see, Marcus said calmly. No, we won't see, because it's impossible. The technology required to fix that mess is centuries beyond human capabilities. Even if you somehow manage to get replacement parts, you need engineers who understand quantum mechanics at a level no human has ever achieved. Elena looked up from her datapad. Actually, I think you'd be surprised what humans can achieve when we're not trying to use technology designed for someone else's brain. Zixtar's eyes focused on Elena, and Marcus could see recognition in the alien's expression. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the engineer who destroyed the Prometheus in the first place. How fitting that you're involved in this farce. I didn't destroy anything, Elena said evenly. The ship was sabotaged. Sabotage? Zixtar's mandibles clicked in what Marcus had learned was the Valkyrie equivalent of rolling one's eyes. Is that what humans call incompetence now? The ship failed because human engineering is primitive and unreliable. Everyone in the galaxy knows this. Everyone in the galaxy believes what they've been told, Elena replied, which isn't necessarily the same as the truth. Zixtar leaned forward on his 6 legs, towering over their table. Dr. Vasquez, I've studied the incident reports. Your ship's quantum matrix suffered a cascade failure that nearly tore the vessel apart. The gravitational manipulators went into uncontrolled oscillation. The matter converters experienced quantum decoherence. These are not the results of sabotage. These are the results of primitive beings trying to use technology they don't understand. You're right about one thing, Marcus said before Elena could respond. We were using technology we didn't understand. That's why we're not going to use it anymore. Zixtar's compound eyes glittered. And what exactly are you going to use instead? Human technology? Your species barely has fusion power. You think you can build quantum drives? We'll find out, Marcus said. The conversation might have continued, but it was interrupted by the arrival of another alien. This one Marcus didn't recognize. Tall and slender, with pale gray skin and large dark eyes. The newcomer wore the formal robes of a Galactic Council representative. "Excuse me," the alien said in perfect standard galactic. "I'm looking for Marcus Chun." Marcus raised his hand. "That's me. My name is Veltar Zahn. I represent the Galactic Mining Consortium. I understand you've recently purchased the vessel known as the Prometheus." "That's right." Veltar Zahn's expression was unreadable. "The consortium would like to make you an offer for the ship. We're prepared to pay twice what you invested, plus a substantial bonus for your time and effort." Marcus leaned back in his chair. Why would the Galactic Mining Consortium want a worthless piece of human junk? The ship has historical significance. We believe it would make an excellent exhibit in the Museum of Technological Development on COR Prime. A cautionary tale about the importance of understanding one's limitations. Elena made a sound that might have been a laugh. A cautionary tale. Right. Is there something amusing about this offer, Dr. Vasquez? Veltar Zahn's tone remained polite, but Marcus detected an undertone of something else. Concern? Fear? Just the timing, Elena said. 15 years the Prometheus sits in a scrapyard, and nobody cares. But the moment someone decides to repair it, suddenly it has historical significance. The consortium's decision to preserve significant technological artifacts is not based on the actions of individual scavengers. Veltar, Zahn replied smoothly. However, I should point out that attempting to repair the Prometheus would be extremely dangerous. The quantum systems are highly unstable. We're not planning to use the quantum systems, Marcus said. Veltar Zahn's composure slipped slightly. I beg your pardon? We're going to replace them with human-built technology. For a moment, the alien said nothing. Then, he recovered his diplomatic mask. Mr. Chun, while I admire human optimism, surely you understand that such an undertaking would be far beyond current human technological capabilities. Would it? Marcus asked. Or have we just never tried? Veltar Zahn was quiet for a long moment. Then, he reached into his robes and withdrew a datapad. Perhaps you would be interested in this alternative proposition. The consortium is prepared to offer you a position as chief mechanic on one of our newest mining vessels. The pay would be excellent, and you would gain valuable experience working with cutting-edge technology. Marcus glanced at the contract details. The offer was generous, more credits than he'd see in 10 years of freelance work. It was also clearly a bribe. Thanks, but I'm not interested, he said, sliding the pad back across the table. Mr. Chun, I urge you to reconsider. The Prometheus project is doomed to failure. You would be wasting valuable time and resources on an impossible task. Maybe, but it's my time and my resources to waste. Veltar stood slowly. Very well, but I feel obligated to warn you that the consortium takes safety very seriously. If your activities pose any risk to station security, we will be forced to intervene. After the alien left, Zixtar and his companions followed, but not before the Valkyrie made several more comments about human stupidity and the inevitable failure of the project. Marcus barely heard them. He was thinking about the timing Elena had mentioned. 15 years, he said once they were alone. 15 years nobody cared about that ship. Now suddenly, everyone's interested. It's almost like they don't want us to fix it, Elena observed. The question is why? Were they afraid we might discover? Elena gathered her notes and stood up. Only one way to find out. Come on, we have a ship to rebuild. They spent the next week assembling a crew. Word had spread through Kepler Station's human community, and volunteers appeared daily at the Prometheus. Some were unemployed engineers looking for work. Others were retired technicians who wanted one last challenge. A few were just curious to see if the project was actually possible. Marcus was surprised by the enthusiasm. Humans throughout the station were excited about the project, even those who thought it was impossible. It was as if the entire community was starved for something to be proud of, something uniquely human. "We've got 47 volunteers," Elena reported as they stood in the ship's main hangar bay. "Engineers, technicians, fabrication specialists, even a few pilots who want to help with testing." Marcus looked around the hangar, which had been transformed into a combination workshop and living space. Emergency lighting had been restored, and several work areas had been set up using portable equipment. It wasn't much, but it was a start. "What's our first priority?" asked Jake Morrison, a former Starship engineer who'd become Marcus's unofficial second-in-command. "Power," Marcus replied. "Everything else depends on getting the fabrication facility online." "Elena, what do you think about bypassing the main power grid entirely? You want to build an independent power system?" "I want to build everything independently." The original Prometheus failed because it tried to integrate incompatible technologies. Our version is going to be purely human, from the power plant to the quantum drives. Elena pulled up the ship's schematics on her portable holo display. "It's ambitious. We're talking about designing and building fusion reactors, gravitational field generators, quantum manipulation systems from scratch. But using human principles," Marcus emphasized. "No alien neural pattern requirements. No exotic energy matrices that only work if you think like a Zephyrian. Just solid engineering that any human can understand and maintain." Jake studied the schematics with obvious interest. This could actually work. Human fusion technology is robust and reliable. We might not be able to achieve the same power-to-weight ratios as alien reactors, but we can build bigger." "Exactly," Marcus said. "We're not trying to match alien technology spec for spec. We're trying to build something better for human needs." Over the following days, the team began working on their first major component, a fusion reactor designed specifically for the Prometheus. Unlike the elegant alien power systems that required constant computer control and exotic matter feeds, the human reactor was built like a fortress. Massive magnetic containment coils, redundant safety systems, and mechanical controls that could be operated manually if necessary. "It's not pretty," Elena admitted as they watched the fabrication facility slowly construct the reactor's main components. "But it's built to last." Marcus nodded. The human approach to engineering had always emphasized reliability over elegance. Where alien technology often used sophisticated solutions that required perfect conditions to function, human technology was designed to work even when things went wrong. Their work didn't go unnoticed. Marcus began noticing more alien observers around the scrapyard, always maintaining their distance but clearly keeping watch on the project. Station security increased their patrols near the Prometheus, citing safety concerns. The Galactic Mining Consortium sent 2 more representatives with increasingly generous offers to purchase the ship. "They're scared," Elena observed one evening as they worked late in the engineering bay. "I've never seen the galactic establishment this nervous about a human project." "Good," Marcus replied as he calibrated the reactor's magnetic containment system. "If they're scared, it means we're on the right track." But Elena's expression was troubled. "Marcus, what if they're scared for good reason? What if we're missing something important?" Marcus looked up from his work. "Like what?" "I don't know, but think about it. Humanity has been trying to develop advanced technology for decades. We've had access to alien textbooks, alien teachers, alien examples to learn from. Yet we've never managed to build anything that truly competes with galactic standard technology. Why? Because we were trying to copy their methods instead of developing our own," Marcus said, but Elena shook her head. "That's what I thought too. But what if it's something else? What if there's a reason the galaxy uses certain technological approaches? What if human engineering, no matter how clever, has fundamental limitations we don't understand?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, then he smiled. "Elena, do you know what humans have that no other species in the galaxy seems to have?" "What?" "Stubbornness. We're too stupid to know when something's impossible, so we try it anyway. Sometimes it gets us in trouble. But sometimes," he gestured to the fusion reactor, which was slowly taking shape under the fabrication facility's precise construction beams. Sometimes it gets us fusion power when the experts said it couldn't be done. Sometimes it gets us quantum drives built with mechanical components when everyone knows you need exotic energy matrices. Sometimes it gets us a working starship when the entire galaxy says it's impossible. Elena smiled. You know what? You're right. Let them be scared. We're going to build this ship, and we're going to prove that human engineering is every bit as good as anything else in the galaxy. As if in response to her words, the fusion reactor's containment field stabilized, and the reactor core came online for the first time in 15 years. Clean, reliable power flowed through the Prometheus's systems, and lights began coming on throughout the ship. For the first time since its failure in the Outer Rim, the Prometheus was truly alive. The moment the Prometheus's lights came back on, everything changed. Marcus stood in the ship's observation deck, watching through the viewport as alien ships began arriving at Kepler Station in unprecedented numbers. In the past week alone, he'd counted vessels from the Zephyrian Hegemony, the Valkyrie Commonwealth, the Etherian Collective, and at least a dozen other major powers, all of them claiming various urgent business that required their presence at what had previously been considered a minor trading post. They're not even trying to be subtle anymore, Elena observed as she joined him at the viewport. A massive Charon dreadnought was maneuvering into position near the station's main docking array, its weapon systems clearly visible despite supposedly being on a diplomatic mission. Good, Marcus replied. I was getting tired of the pretense. The past month had been a whirlwind of activity. With the fusion reactor online, the Prometheus's fabrication facility was running at full capacity, manufacturing components for the ship's rebuilt systems. The human engineering team had grown to nearly 100 volunteers, working in shifts to accelerate the reconstruction. The results had exceeded even Marcus's optimistic projections. The new fusion reactor was producing 30% more power than the original alien power systems, while being significantly more reliable. The human-built gravitational field generators were less sophisticated than their alien counterparts, but they were also more robust and easier to maintain. Most importantly, every system they built was designed to work with human operators. No exotic neural pattern interfaces, no quantum entangled control matrices that required telepathic species to operate. Just solid, reliable technology that any human engineer could understand, repair, and improve. Status report? Marcus asked as Jake Morrison approached with a datapad. Better than expected, Jake replied with a grin. The new navigation system is online and tested. The life support upgrade is ahead of schedule, and Sarah's team just finished installing the last of the thruster arrays. Marcus looked over the data with satisfaction. Sarah Chun, no relation, despite the name, was a propulsion specialist who'd been laid off when her previous employer decided human engineers were unsuited for advanced starship design. Her rebuilt thruster system used purely mechanical components and chemical fuel, making it less efficient than alien plasma drives, but infinitely more reliable. What about the quantum drive? Elena asked. That's where things get interesting, Jake said. Tom's approach is completely different from anything I've ever seen. Instead of manipulating space-time directly like alien drives, he's using controlled gravitational fields to create he calls it a gravitational sling. Marcus nodded. Tom Rodriguez had been working on the quantum drive problem for weeks, approaching it from a completely human perspective. Instead of trying to fold space or manipulate exotic matter, his design used the ship's gravitational field generators to essentially surf along gravitational currents in space. It's not as fast as a standard quantum drive, Jake continued, but it's faster than anything else humans have ever built. And the best part is, it doesn't require any exotic matter or quantum entangled components. Just really, really precise gravitational control. How precise? Elena asked. Precise enough to navigate gravitational currents between star systems. Precise enough to use planets and stars as gravitational anchors. Precise enough to achieve faster-than-light travel using nothing but good old-fashioned physics. Marcus felt a surge of pride. This was exactly what he'd hoped to achieve. Human technology that worked with human capabilities, rather than trying to copy alien methods that required alien biology to operate effectively. Their celebration was interrupted by the arrival of Station Commander Torvik, a heavy-set Quran whose official role was maintaining order on Kepler Station. Unofficially, everyone knew he reported directly to the Galactic Mining Consortium. "Mr. Chun," Torvik said in his booming voice, "I need to speak with you about your project." "What about it?" Marcus asked. "There have been complaints. Safety concerns. Several alien dignitaries have expressed worry about the experimental nature of your work." "What kind of safety concerns?" Elena asked. "Uncontrolled gravitational fields, quantum distortions, radiation leakage, the kind of dangers that come from primitive species attempting to use advanced technology they don't understand." Marcus looked around the ship's observation deck, where dozens of his team members were working calmly at various stations. The air was clean, the gravity was stable, and the radiation monitors showed normal background levels. "Commander Torvik, with respect, what you're describing sounds like the problems we were having with alien technology. Our human-built systems don't produce quantum distortions because they don't use quantum manipulation. They don't leak radiation because we use mechanical containment instead of exotic energy fields. Nevertheless, the Galactic Council has asked me to conduct a formal safety inspection. If any violations are found, I'll be forced to shut down the project." Marcus and Elena exchanged glances. "When?" Marcus asked. "Tomorrow. I suggest you prepare your documentation." After Torvik left, Marcus called a meeting of the senior team members. They gathered in the ship's main conference room, a space that had been gutted and rebuilt to accommodate human-scale furniture and human-readable displays. "They're going to try to shut us down," Marcus said without preamble. "Torvik's inspection tomorrow is just the first step. If they can find any technical violations, they'll use them as an excuse to declare the project unsafe." "Can they do that?" asked Sarah. "I mean, legally?" "Galactic law is pretty clear," Elena replied. "Station commanders have broad authority to protect public safety. If Torvik declares our work dangerous, he can shut us down and impound the ship. But our systems are safer than the alien technology we replaced," Tom protested. "Doesn't matter. Torvik doesn't have to prove we're actually dangerous. He just has to claim we are, and the burden of proof falls on us." Marcus stood up and walked to the conference room's main display, which showed a schematic of the rebuilt Prometheus. The ship was nearly complete now, a hybrid of original human construction and new human technology that was unlike anything else in the galaxy. "How long until we're space-worthy?" he asked. Jake consulted his datapad. "If we push hard, maybe a week. The quantum drive still needs final calibration, and we haven't completed the full systems integration tests." "What if we skip some of the tests?" "Marcus," Elena said carefully, "I know you're frustrated, but cutting corners on safety testing is exactly the kind of thing that got the original Prometheus in trouble. The original Prometheus got in trouble because it was using alien technology that wasn't compatible with human operators. Our systems are designed from the ground up for human use." Marcus turned back to the team. "Look, I'm not suggesting we launch an unsafe ship, but I am suggesting that our definition of safe enough to launch might be different from their definition of safe enough to keep in port." The room was quiet for a moment as everyone considered the implications. Then Sarah spoke up. "The thruster systems are fully tested and operational. Life support is running perfectly. Navigation is online and calibrated. Really, the only major unknown is the quantum drive. And even that's been tested in simulation," Tom added. "The math is solid. It should work." "Should," Elena emphasized. "Everything should work until you try it," Marcus replied. "But that's true of alien technology too. The difference is if something goes wrong with our systems, we'll understand why and be able to fix it." Jake looked up from his calculations. "If we work around the clock, we could have basic spaceworthiness in 72 hours. Not full operational capacity, but enough to launch and run basic tests in deep space." "That's cutting it close," Elena said. "Torvik's inspection is tomorrow. Even if we pass, he could always schedule follow-up inspections." Or, Marcus said slowly, we could conduct our own test flight before his inspection. The room went silent. Everyone understood what Marcus was suggesting. A test flight before official approval would be technically illegal under station regulations. If something went wrong, they'd be in serious legal trouble. But if they waited for official approval, they might never get the chance to test their ship at all. It's risky, Elena said finally. Everything worth doing is risky, Marcus replied. The question is, are we willing to let the galaxy's bureaucrats decide whether human engineering is good enough for humans to use? One by one, the team members nodded their agreement. They'd come this far. They'd proven that human technology could work just as well as alien alternatives, maybe better. They weren't going to let politics and bureaucracy stop them now. All right, Marcus said. 72 hours to spaceworthiness. Tom, focus on the quantum drive. Sarah, make sure the thrusters can get us safely away from the station. Jake, overall systems coordination. Elena, help me figure out how to launch a 2-kilometer starship without anyone noticing until we're gone. You know, Elena said as the meeting broke up, there's one thing we haven't discussed. What's that? Where are we going to go? Even if we successfully launch, every major power in the galaxy knows about this ship now. The moment we appear on sensors, we'll have half the galactic fleet chasing us. Marcus smiled. I've been thinking about that. Remember what you said about the original Prometheus being attacked in the Outer Rim? Of course. What if we went back? What if we tried to find evidence of what really happened out there? Elena's eyes widened. Marcus, that's actually not a bad idea. The Outer Rim is too dangerous for most species to operate safely. Even if they chase us, they probably won't follow us into the really hazardous areas. Plus, if we're right about the Prometheus being sabotaged, the evidence might still be out there. Finding it could prove that the ship's failure wasn't due to human incompetence. It could change everything, Elena agreed. Not just for us, but for all of humanity. The next 72 hours were a blur of activity. Every human on Kepler Station seemed to know about the project, and volunteers appeared at all hours to help with the final preparations. Word spread through the human community's informal networks, and supplies began arriving from sources Marcus couldn't identify. Tools, components, even food, and water for the upcoming journey. It was as if the entire human diaspora was rallying around the Prometheus, seeing it as a symbol of human potential rather than human failure. Final systems check, Jake reported as the countdown entered its last hour. Fusion reactor at optimal output. Gravitational field generators stable. Life support nominal. Thruster arrays ready for ignition. Quantum drive status? Marcus asked from the captain's chair. The ship's bridge had been completely rebuilt using human ergonomics and human interface protocols. Instead of the exotic holographic displays favored by alien species, everything was presented on solid screens with mechanical controls that provided tactile feedback. Drive field generators are online, Tom reported. Gravitational current mapping is complete. We have a clear path to the outer rim that should minimize detection. Navigation confirms the route, Sarah added. Once we clear Kepler Station's gravity well, we can engage the quantum drive and be in the outer rim within 6 hours. Marcus looked around the bridge at his crew. These were people who'd been written off by the galactic establishment as too primitive to handle advanced technology. They were about to prove that assessment wrong. Elena, any last thoughts on our flight plan? Elena checked her instruments one final time. The route looks good. The quantum drive should work. The ship is as ready as we can make it in 3 days. But, Marcus asked, hearing the unspoken reservation in her voice. But we're still flying a completely untested ship using experimental technology into one of the most dangerous regions of the galaxy. If something goes wrong, we'll fix it, Marcus said. That's what humans do. He opened a ship-wide communication channel. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for launch. In 30 minutes, the Prometheus is going to fly again. As the countdown continued, Marcus couldn't help but smile. Outside, the alien ships were still maintaining their watch, waiting to see what the primitive humans would do with their rebuilt ship. They were about to find out.